Hi, today I am sat on my floor because comfy and varying the position I film in. I am taking part in the Bookternet All-Stars Charity Challenge today. I was tagged by Ashley to take part, and this challenge has been created by Rachel Marie. This is a community tag challenge to raise money for the COVID-19 relief. This is a really important way to be able to raise some funds, and I think what Rachel's doing here is absolutely fantastic. The basic premise is, if you've been tagged, or I suppose if you want to take part, create a video, create a blog post, do something on Instagram, however you're able to take part. But basically, Rachel's created an amazing list of very popular YA books and authors, and I'm going to talk about each book, if I've read them, if I haven't read them, what I thought of them, give you guys my opinions, and for each video created and submitted to Rachel, she will donate €1 to the relief, up to the value of €75. You can also submit your link to Rachel and be put into a random pot to be drawn to pick which specific charity at the COVID-19 relief this money is donated to. And if you'd like as well, you can obviously donate yourself. So there's quite a few different things going on here. I will be making a donation, and below will be all the links to do this as well. If you'd like to, you can donate, you can get involved. I will link it all down below. But for now, shall we jump into the video? So the first author is Angie Thomas. I don't have my copy of The Hate U Give in front of me to show you. However, I read about half of this one, and unfortunately I DNF'd it. I have to be in quite a specific mood to read contemporary. The only contemporary books I have are a couple of the ones behind me here, so it's not my favourite genre. I think I possibly picked this one up at the wrong time, and the slower pace wasn't necessarily what I needed at that point. So that one, unfortunately for me, I didn't finish. Don't know if I'd go back to it in the future or not, but I haven't yet read any of Angie Thomas's other books. Next up is the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi. I have not read this one yet, however I do own quite a few of the series because I got them as a box set in The Works. The Works is a very weird shop in the UK that just sells random cheap bits and bobs, but it does have a couple of decent price book box sets. That's hard to say. So I bought this one, but I haven't necessarily been that bothered to pick it up, even though I've heard good things about it. I think this is about people that have superhuman abilities, such as being able to cry forests out of their eyes. I don't actually think that's one of the abilities, but we'll pretend it is because that would be cool. But I will get round to this at some point, maybe. It's not very big, so I really should. Then we have got Leigh Bardugo. I have got the very beautiful Waterstones editions of Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. Look at those sprayed edges, these are very pretty. I have read Six of Crows, but I haven't yet read Crooked Kingdom. Here's my story. I read Six of Crows when I very first started blogging, and I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't like it as much as everyone else seemed to. It was suggested to me that because I hadn't read the other books by Leigh Bardugo, like Shadow and Bone, that series, which is there, that I wouldn't enjoy it quite as much, so I should probably read those ones. However, at the time I was working in Waterstones and Crooked Kingdom came out, and it was like a tall paperback, it wasn't the normal size, and I got very excited because it came in a day early and it wasn't embargoed, so I bought that at the time and then just never read the series again because I felt too daunted. However, now I have bought the beautiful editions of these. I've got Shadow and Bone and I'm listening to an Audible at the moment, so I am going to read these, and I hopefully enjoy this a bit more because I just found it a bit typical of YA. Like, the heist was interesting, but I felt it didn't surprise me at all, but I think that is because I wasn't really into the world enough, and I do want to give it another go because I want to like it. I did like it, but I want to really love it, so I'll give this one another shout. The next prompt is The Cruel Prince. I've written this on a post-it note because, do you know what? I DNF'd it. I know that Ashley also DNF'd it, and in her video she threw her book across the room, but my book is in the garage and it's the hardback Fairy Loot edition, and it's really pretty, so one day when I have a library it'll go up on the shelf. But my god, I really didn't like that book. I don't like completely slamming books because I know how much effort an author put into writing a book, so I'm not taking away from any of that. I know that every book is different for each person, but for me, I did not like any of the characters. I didn't find any of them relatable in any sense. They were all just mean and moody, and there wasn't anything that I wanted to pull on to enjoy about them, which meant that there wasn't really much happening in the book that I was interested in. I wasn't invested in the characters, I didn't care about their lives or what happened to them, so it was all just a bit lackluster for me, really. And yeah, I'm never going to continue on with that series. Actually, I never say never because I might change my mind, but I'm probably never going to carry on with that series, as pretty as the covers are. Next up is The Bone Witch, which is a book that I haven't read or heard much about. I know the cover, it's very pretty and purple and swirly. However, watching everyone's videos talking about it for this tag has actually made me add it to my wish list, so I will be reading that at some point in the future when I actually own the copy of it. Next up is one of my favourite authors, Victoria Schwab. I have read all bar one of Victoria Schwab's books, I think. The only one I haven't got to yet, no, two, sorry, is Our Dark Duet, which is the second in the This Savage Song series, and I also haven't yet read the Archive series. I do own both of them and I will read them. I think I need to reread This Savage Song. I made the mistake of reading it whilst I was at YALC a few years ago, and I tend to find whatever book I read at YALC always gets pushed to the side a little bit because I'm so excited about all the other books I've just bought. But the reason I love Victoria Schwab so much is the worlds that she builds are absolutely immersive and magical. The Darker Shade of Magic series reminded me of something I read when I was a kid about alternative versions of London, and that is why I first picked her books up. But since then, I've had the pleasure of meeting her a couple of times. The first time I ever met her was at a very small signing in Bristol, Forbidden Planet. It was just as, I think Vicious was coming out, and it was very small, low-key. It was while she was on her way to London, but I think it was just before she became like absolutely known everywhere among bookish humans. She was pretty well known, but it was great. It was really nice to meet her. She filmed a segment for my booktube channel when I used to run it in 2017, and she was just so nice. Victoria Schwab will always hold a special place in my heart, and I just absolutely think she's fantastic. Then we have the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I have read the first 3 books in this series, and I've never read Winter, and I don't know why. It's possibly something to do, God, this is shiny, possibly something to do with the fact that the size of it is gigantic, and it's just not one that I have at the top of my TBR at the moment, because these books always take me a bit longer to get through, which I don't know why, because they're quite easy to read. However, this series is one that I forget quite quickly. Like I remember the characters and I remember vaguely what's happened, but I think there's little details I can't actually remember as well. So I would need to reread before I read Winter, and that just isn't appealing to me at the moment. So maybe I'll finish them, but for now, it's a no. Next up, if you want to have your heart broken, it's Adam Silvera. This is They Both Die at the End, which absolutely ruined me and haunts me to this day. The very simple concept of this book is that on the day you're gonna die, you get a phone call telling you you're gonna die. And I just think that is so traumatizing, because is it the phone call itself that causes the death? What, like, duh. I read this book about 2 years ago and it still is ingrained in my head because of how much it traumatized me and made me cry. So if you want to be hurt, then this is a book for you. Next up is Cassandra Clare, and all my books from her are in my garage because I hate Jace. I hate Jace more than I've ever hated a character in the whole existence of fictional humans. I hate Jace so much because he is an arrogant twat of a human. And I'm really sorry if you guys love him, but you know what? You came here for honest opinions, so you have to accept it. Jace is just, I need to stop talking about how much I hate him, really, don't I? I read Lady Midnight first. I read Lady Midnight when I very first started blogging because it was very popular at the time. I thought I want to see what this is all about. So I read that, No Contest of the Shadowhunters. I think I'd seen the first film. And I really liked Lady Midnight. I was obsessed with it. I read it really quickly, and I was very much into reading the other Shadowhunter books, so I bought them all. And I read the first one, and I hated it. So I thought I'll read the second one. And the second one was just all about Jace, and I hated it. So then I thought I'll read the Infernal Devices. Is that the first series? Yeah, maybe the ones set in Victorian times. So I read that first one. I thought, okay, cool, all right. But this Will guy, he's just like Jace, which I know is probably going to make you guys hate me, and I have been told he gets better in book 2. So I thought I'll read book 2, and I got halfway through book 2 and I thought I can't do it anymore. However, I recently watched Pierre Ford's video where she read the entire Shadowhunter series in 72 hours, and I'm maybe thinking of giving it another go because it does sound like it gets quite epic towards the end, and I love an epic battle scene. However, honestly, oh god, honestly, it just puts me off so much. I think Will could get better. I don't dislike him as much as I dislike Jace, but I do notice that Cassandra Clare puts that sort of arrogant traits into her male characters. Next up is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book, I listened to an Audible, and let me tell you guys, this is flippin' fantastic. I loved this book. I've seen a lot of people really find it boring, but more people have absolutely loved it. I think if you like fantasy and things, obviously this is quite a different book as it is a contemporary about a starlet in her youth becoming more and more famous. It's absolutely not a fantasy in any shape or form, and I think the people I've seen disliking it are ones that really like fantasy books. However, my god, this is good. I would highly recommend the audiobook for this or any of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. This just blew my mind. It held a special place in my heart. The atmosphere is superb. The way it makes you feel is unique. And I just love Evelyn Hugo and her story and her life and her loves. And it's such a good book. You know when I said I'd be comfier sitting here? I'm not. I need back support. Next up is Laini Taylor. I love this book. This is one of my favourite books. It's so beautiful. This is worn. I have read this to death. I adore this series. I don't find it boring like some people say. I find it very detailed, very atmospheric, very much a fantasy. I really, really liked it. I have read Daughter of Smoke and Bone as well, but I haven't gone on with that series for absolutely no reason other than I just haven't. I think I've now reached a point where I need to reread Daughter of Smoke and Bone because I can't remember too much of it. But the way that Laini Taylor writes is very fantastical, very enchanting, and it sweeps you away, and I really like her writing style. Next up is the Illuminate Files. I dislike sci-fi greatly. I just don't find it interesting, which is weird because I like watching Star Trek. However, I just don't like sci-fi books. I read the Illuminate Files, and I think they're somewhere in my garage. I read the Illuminate Files. I read Illuminate. I just found it really boring. I didn't care about the characters. I liked the format of the book in the sense that it was laid out weirdly, but I just found it dull. It wasn't my kind of thing, and I had no interest in carrying on with it. So that is the end of my journey on the Illuminate Files. Next up is Scythe by Neil Schusterman. I know about this book series, but I have never really been that bothered to pick it up. Honestly, I find the cover really off-putting, and I never would have picked it off a shelf until I heard people talking about it. I know that you're not meant to judge a book by its cover, but you've all got to admit that you do pick a book off a shelf at a bookshop because of the spine or the cover or the name being something that you find appealing. This series honestly just doesn't do it for me. Not bothered by it, and probably won't pick it up anytime soon. Then we've got Sarah J Maas. If you've seen in the background of my videos, I have a whole Maas shelf, which is a massive shelf of my collection. Having more recently enjoyed House of Earth and Blood, I can definitely say I'm back on the Sarah J Maas train. Throne of Glass wasn't my favourite series. I do have all the hardbacks because they're pretty, but this is her first jump into adult fantasy, and I think this is where she excels. This book is fantastic. It made me cry my eyes out, it made me laugh, it made me sit on the edge of my seat. It's brilliant. It is just so good. Just read it, read it. Of course, there's also A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is the third book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. A lot of people haven't got past the first book in this series, but let me tell you, if you're one of those people, it completely changes direction. This book is very, very different to where you think you're going to go in the first book. Love this series. Partially love this one the best because of the epic fight scene that there is at the end. I love a fight scene like that where you're switching between characters really quickly. I like how engaged it makes me feel. If you've got any book recommendations with epic fight scenes like that, pop them down below for me in the comments. Next up is An Ember in the Ashes, which I think I might have on Kindle or Audible or some sort of not physical copy. I don't know why I've not read this book series, but I'm just not that bothered by it. I can't even remember what it's about. I think when I very first started blogging, this was one of the ones that everyone was reading, and I just never got to it. So yeah, I don't know. I can't say I'd never get to it in the future, but I couldn't tell you anything about it either. Next is Shawna Mcguire, who writes the Wayward Children series. I read all of these via Audible, so I can't show you any of them in my hands. I really like this series. They're very short books, but they're about the children that come back from fantasy worlds, like Alice in Wonderland's world, for example. It's all fictional, so it's not based on current stories, but that's the kind of theme to it. And then you get to visit each different world in each of the books almost. It's just fun. I like them. They're short, they're easy listens, and they're very good fantasies. Second to last, we have got The Poppy War by Rf Clang. This is one of my favourite books ever. If you like fantasy and you like epic worlds and a lot of world building, but not in a heavy way, and you like big fights and epic bits of magic, this is definitely a book for you. This is about Rin, who goes to a school to learn how to be a warrior for the land, and she ends up learning quite a lot more than that and discovers that she has some shamanic abilities, and it is just great. I really, really like this book and the whole series. The Dragon Republic is also fantastic, and the third book comes out this year, and I cannot wait. Please read this book if you haven't already and you like that kind of thing. It is definitely not light reading, but it's not heavy in the sense of, oh my god, there's too much description or anything. There's a lot going on. It's very fast paced and I really enjoyed it. I've listened to this and I've read it physically. I've read it a couple of times. The audiobook is honestly quite a good one for it, so if you're feeling daunted by the size of it, then pick it up on audiobook. Lastly, we have got To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. This is a trilogy about Lara Jean as she sends off some letters to some boys she used to love. This is quite an easy read. I listened to the 3 of these on audiobook last summer or the summer before, I think 2 years ago. I just listened to them all in a week because they were easy and I like the narrator and they were good fun. So I would definitely recommend these books if you are after an easy summer read. Thank you guys so much for watching my taking part in the Bookternet All-Stars Charity Challenge. Thank you again to Ashley for tagging me. Thank you so much to Rachel for creating this tag. It is a very valuable tag at the moment, and particularly because it's talking about the COVID-19 relief, how we can help, and it's offering not only to raise some money for the relief but also to raise awareness. So even if you can't donate or you don't want to take part in this yourself, just by sharing the ways that other people are taking part, sharing this video, sharing someone else's video or a blog post, then you are helping to raise more awareness for this cause. If you are able to donate and you would like to and you feel comfortable doing that, there is a link below to be able to do that. As I said at the start of the video, I will be donating once I've uploaded this. Thank you so much everyone for watching. Keep smiling and stay positive. Now let's take a thumbnail. Can I make you higher? This is it. This is how I die. Oh God. Ah, I'm not this strong. The gyms are shut. I can't do weightlifting. Oh God. Oh my God. Can we just have them like that on my knee? Is that gonna work?